On the third day, when his mother's life hung by a thread, Armin's phone received another message from an unknown number. Come to the golf club outside the city. Borzan. Armin understood this was no coincidence. Mr. Borzan had eyes and ears everywhere. He had already learned of the tragedy that had befallen Armin. In a private room at the golf club, Mr. Borzan sat drinking coffee. When Armin entered, he silently placed a bank check in front of him. On it was written, 25 million tenge. Mr. Borzan, coolly and like a man who had already won, said, "This money is exactly enough for your mother's surgery and her subsequent treatment abroad. The condition is very simple. You take this money and tonight you leave Almaty. You do not explain anything to Dana. She will think that you abandoned her for money. I will tell her exactly that. You will become the most disgusting traitor in her eyes. The choice is yours. Either keep your honor and your love and watch your mother die, or save your mother and accept my condition." At that moment, Armin's inner world was crumbling. He stood before the hardest choice of his life. On one scale, his beloved Dana, his true love and his own pride. On the other scale, the mother who raised him. What is love without a mother? What is happiness without a mother? Armin wiped away the tears from his eyes, his hands trembling as he took the check. He whispered with regret, "I agree." That night, Armin went to the hospital and paid for all the surgery costs. He called his friend Duman, returned his 5 million, and entrusted the remaining money for his mother's care. Armin, his voice breaking, said, "Duman, I am leaving. Do not search for me. I entrust my mother to you. After the surgery, tell her nothing. Just say I was offered a job abroad. Dana is no longer in my life." That night, Armin boarded a train bound for Astana and left Almaty forever. 5 years passed. 5 years, a short time for some, but for Armin each day was a long time spent on edge. In the first months in Astana, Armin would wake up crying at night. In the early months, Dana sent him hundreds of messages. "Why are you silent? Why did you leave me?" she pleaded. But Armin had already changed his phone number and his life. Finally, Dana stopped writing. Her heart turned to ice. She believed her father's words and hated Armin, calling him a good-for-nothing traitor. However, this heavy blow did not destroy Armin. On the contrary, it forged him like iron. He made a vow to himself, "I will become rich. I will rise so high that no one can ever measure my honor with money." Armin worked 20 hours a day in Astana. First, he joined a small logistics company as a simple manager. By the 5th year, Armin had become one of the most successful and youngest entrepreneurs in Astana. Hundreds of people worked under him. He bought a luxurious house and an expensive car. He brought his mother Aisha APA to Astana and provided her with the best care in top clinics. His mother's heart was completely healed, but she sensed deep inside that her son never smiled, and that eternal sadness had settled in his eyes. One day, Armin was invited as a main speaker to a major business forum in Almaty. After 5 years, he set foot in his hometown for the first time. He was no longer the poor young man in a torn jacket. He was a tall, well-dressed man in an expensive suit. After the forum, Armin first met with Duman. They talked for a long time. At one point, Armin could not resist and asked, "How is Dana?" Duman sighed sadly and said, "Dana has changed a lot, Armin. After you left, she stopped talking to anyone. Now she runs her father's company. But the worst part is, her father, Mr. Borzan, had a stroke 6 months ago and is now bedridden. Their holding company is in a deep crisis, on the verge of bankruptcy. They need an investor, or they will lose everything." The next day, Armin arrived at the head office of Borzan Holding. He was the main investor coming to buy the majority shares of the company that had looked down on him 5 years ago. The secretary led him to the director's office. When he opened the door, he saw Dana buried in papers at her desk. Dana lifted her head to look at the arriving investor, and then she could not help but stand up. The pen fell from her hand. Dana, her voice trembling with anger, said, "Armin, what are you doing here? You are the new investor? Why have you come? To take away my last remaining company? Was wealth not enough for you? You abandoned me and ran away for money." At that very moment, the door opened and an assistant wheeled in Mr. Borzan sitting in a wheelchair. Behind him stood Armin's mother, Aisha APA, and Duman. The former arrogance and pride had vanished from Mr. Borzon's face. Mr. Borzon, in a hoarse, weak, and regretful voice, said, "My daughter, do not blame Armin. He is not a traitor. 5 years ago, I bargained with the life of Aisha APA, who was at death's door. I gave Armin the money. He took it to save his mother's life. But I imposed a condition. If he took the money, he had to leave your life forever. I slandered him. He did not betray you. He sacrificed his own happiness for his mother. Only when I fell ill and faced death did I understand that wealth means nothing. Forgive me." Dana, unable to believe what she heard, covered her mouth with her hand and looked at Armin. Silent tears were also streaming from Armin's eyes. Dana sobbed and buried herself in Armin's chest. "Armin, my God, why didn't you tell me? Why did you bear everything alone?" Armin stroked her hair and comforted her. "Forgive me, Dana. I had no other choice. But I never forgot you, not for a second." Another year passed. The main success of this story was not material wealth. In the courtyard of a large, beautiful house, a grand dasterkan was spread. Around it sat happy Armin and Dana, their little baby in their arms. At the head of the table, white-scarfed Aisha APA, beside her Mr. Borzon with a smile on his face, and the loyal friend Duman. Armin stood up and looked around. The 5-year ice in his heart had completely melted. Armin said in a deep, meaningful voice, "I have seen both poverty and wealth in life. And I clearly understood one thing. True wealth is not a bank account. True wealth is your mother's beating heart, your friend's loyal hand, and your beloved's clear eyes. To preserve these things, you can endure any hardship." Everyone at the dasterkan smiled warmly in agreement. The sunny summer sky of Almaty shone brightly. A moment of triumph for true love and honor that had passed all of fate's tests.